Hello, in this chapter we're going to talk about poverty. First of all, let's define poverty. In the US right now, we define poverty as an income level under which if you fall, you are classified as poor. What is this income level? For a family of four, it is about $22,000. For a family of three, it's about $19,000. And for a family of one, it's about between $11,000 and $12,000. You may say those are extremely low numbers. Does this mean that if you are a family of four and you make, let's say, $24,000, you're not classified as poor? This is correct. You're not. How did these guidelines come to be? Well, they're very old. That's the problem. They came to be, I think, in the 60s. And they represent 3 times the amount that you would pay for minimal nutrition. So if you fall under this amount, you're classified as poor. Since they are considered outdated, many researchers believe that you should be using a poverty guideline which is actually double than the one we have. Because there are so many people under this new proposed guideline that are poor and do not meet basic needs in their life. So depending on the guideline you use, you're going to come up with different numbers. So if you're using the original guideline, the federal guideline that was adopted in the 60s, about 13% of the population, the rate changes from 12 to 14 sometimes, depending on whether we have a recession or not. So 13%, let's say, of the population is classified as poor, more or less. But if you double this, then you're talking about more than a quarter of the US population being classified as poor. The groups most vulnerable to poverty are women and children, and this is the worrying thing. After children, actually, the group most likely to fall into poverty are the disabled and the elderly. So you're seeing here 3 very vulnerable groups being poor. This is what the worrying thing is, because they are not able to go out and work full-time, 1 job or 2 jobs, in order to help themselves escape from poverty. I said before, women as well. Well, women fall into this category, but also because we're observing right now feminization of poverty, which means more and more and more women are falling into the category of the poor. Now, we discussed the 3 sociological perspectives in the previous video, and we're going to apply, especially the first 2, which are important here, the structural functionalism and the conflict theory, on poverty. Structural functionalists are looking at poverty and they see functionality for the structure. In other words, if I translate it, they see usefulness for society. Yes, they say this. The poor are useful. Why? First of all, they provide a basis for stratification. We have to have stratification in a society because the most important jobs should be given more money. The criticism here is, how do you classify a job as important? What are the criteria? Many people would say that a teacher has a very important job, but the salary of our teachers are deplorable. Many would say that the policemen and firemen hold very important jobs, but we know that their salaries are very low as well. So there is a heavy criticism against the stratification based on compensation, which is based on a perceived importance of the job. However, the most well-known article about the uses of poverty has been written by Herbert Gans. It's titled "The Uses of Poverty, the Poor Pay It All." And he says that we cannot live without the poor because the poor provide so many functions to society. First of all, they give us cheap labor. We could not have all those low-end jobs unless we have the poor. Just think that by magic, tomorrow, there is a check deposited in every poor man's account in the United States of, let's say, $100,000 or $200,000. Imagine, hypothetically, what would happen? I think the economy would collapse within a week. None of those people would show up to work at fast food, at supermarkets, delivery networks, housekeeping. Think about the hospitals. Who would be disinfecting and cleaning the hospitals? The whole society would experience an unprecedented upheaval. Gans also says that poverty is useful to a society. We need the poor because they give room to development. For example, when we want to build a new highway or an airport, the first housing that we demolish are the projects. We don't dare touch middle class or upper class developments. The poor also subsidize the rich. For example, if a lawyer who charges $200 an hour has 2 children, she can still go out to work by hiring a poor woman whom she pays $15 an hour to take care of the children, so she can go out and earn the 200 minus the 15. And this is what they mean by subsidizing the income of the rich. The poor also enable bad products to experience a longer economical survival because we don't throw away bad products. We just put them on sale and we know that a poor person will buy them. I went to Marshall's the other day and I saw a chipped mug and I said, who is going to buy this? And then I looked at the price. It had been marked down to 75 cents. Obviously somebody would buy it because it was so cheap after that. The poor also provide businesses to bad professionals. Bad doctors or bad lawyers who suffered some penalties in the past because of bad services re-establish their offices in low-end neighborhoods where they attract the poor population. And many other uses that Gans mentions in his article, which I recommend you should read. It's a classic in sociology. The conflict theorists, on the other hand, are not interested in functionality. They're interested in how inequality promotes a problem. And they say that we live in a very unequal society. Actually, wealth inequality and income inequality right now in the United States have reached extreme proportions, and this intensifies the plight of the poor. So they discuss also 2 theories that have been debated upon the causes of poverty. And one theory blames the culture of the poor. It is called individualistic theory, and the other theory is called the structural theory because it blames the lack of opportunities that society arranges among its population. I will start with the structural theory and then I'll go back to the individualistic theory. So what do the structuralist theorists mean when they say the opportunities are not equally distributed? Well, think about schooling. Schooling in low-end neighborhoods, being funded mostly by property taxes, does not get the same funding as a school in an upper-class neighborhood because the property taxes in the upper-class neighborhood are far higher than the low-end neighborhood. So the school is underfunded and quite problematic from this aspect. The low-end neighborhoods have high crime rates, so the unsafe environment produces high level of stress, and stress affects every aspect of one's life in a negative way. Also, when there is a high crime rate, legitimate businesses move away and go to the suburbs, so think about children that are left behind and they're not exposed to any kind of legitimate businesses. The only businesses they see is the pimp, the prostitute, and the drug dealer. Often we have a large number of single parents in those neighborhoods, and supervision is limited because those parents have to work very hard to bring in some money. Because of poverty, nutrition is low, bad, and we have powerful correlations now between bad nutrition and low IQ. And many other structural obstacles. One that came to my attention through a child's story was that although she needed after school tutoring that the school offers, she could not get it because the school bus could not take her back home. You see, the school buses stop with the first when the school ends at 3 o'clock. They do not wait, or they do not come back to take those kids that stay after school. So she needed a ride. The mother did not have a car. There was only one car in the family used by the father who was working. And this is where the structural obstacle emerges. There was no public transportation in that area. She lives in Valrico, Florida. So because of the lack of public transportation, she was condemned into not taking the extra tutoring that she needed. The individualistic theories say that it is what is wrong is the culture of the poor as well. And often we hear they don't have a long-term perspective, they make the wrong decisions, they spend all their money the wrong way, they don't seem to want to improve, etc., etc., etc. Well, there is a very interesting theory that explains how deprivation affects our mentality. So I have made some notes. You will allow me to read those. It is the theory of depletable self-control, and it states that exerting willpower in one area makes us less able to exert it in other areas. Researchers asked hungry subjects to sit at a table with sweets and radishes. Some were instructed to eat radishes and resist the sweets. Then they were given geometric puzzles to solve. Those who resisted the sweets gave up more than twice as quickly on the geometric puzzles. Resisting temptation has a psychic cost. Economic decision-making is more consuming of cognitive control for poor people. In one experiment, poor people in India performed far less well on a self-control task after having to first decide whether to buy body soap. Their calculation was a trade-off because they had to assess what they had to give up to get the soap. The theory explains one of the obstacles to escaping poverty. Rich folks buy things because they like them. Poor folks make trade-off calculations, whether to pay rent or buy food, to buy medicine or winter clothes. It is distracting, it is depleting, and it leads to mistakes. Poverty reduces not only freedom of choice, but also alters the nature of freedom by reducing an individual's willpower. So keep that theory in mind. It's not mentioned in your books, but if you want to research it a bit further, it is called the theory of depletable self-control. And always co-assess all the factors that surround somebody's life in order to understand his journey through that life.